morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told how to voice the radio. So today we're carrying on with one of my very favourite series I do on this channel. 3 Pokemon cards that are so gosh darn good, they are never going to get reprinted. And I'm going to start off today with a card that I thought was on the ban list, because I kind of assumed it had to be on the ban list, but it turns out it's not on the ban list. It's Life Dew. What I was doing the other day, I was looking for A-Spec cards that I just thought were so good, we're just not getting them back. And I think Life Dew absolutely falls into that category. I think Life Dew is an absurd card, and I would be very, very surprised at this stage if Life Dew ever came back. You see, what Life Dew does, it's a Pokemon tool that if you attach it to a Pokemon and that Pokemon is knocked out, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize card. Also, shout out to Pokemon for putting fewer on here, because games like One Piece, they keep saying less and it drives me crazy. But the point is, we're in a situation here where you can pop this on a single prize Pokemon, they get KO'd, and you just don't take a prize. Now, as a whole, this is good, fine, all right, nothing too special, but not too bad. The problem comes in where you can recover this. So, where this got absolutely ridiculously broken, and this might not have got banned, this might not be on the ban list, but there are other cards like Puzzle of Time, for instance, which is on the ban list basically because of this card. Because what we had back in the day was we had Sableye with Junk Hunt. So what you would do here is you would have Sableye using Junk Hunt to put 2 item cards from your discard pile into your hand, and those 2 cards would be Puzzle of Time. Because of course, if you try and use Sableye to recover Life Dew, you use Life Dew, you don't give up a prize, next turn you recover it, your opponent can take a prize, and then next turn you attach it and they can't take a prize, they can take a prize every other turn. But if you recover Puzzle of Time, then you get KO'd with Life Dew attached, your opponent doesn't take a prize, and then you've just got Puzzle of Time back, so you can immediately use Puzzle of Time to go and get back your Life Dew and reattach it the turn after you got KO'd, and you essentially have access to Puzzle of Time every single turn. It is an absurd card. And like I say, I'm not saying this is the only reason that Puzzle of Time got banned, but I'm telling you this is the main reason Puzzle of Time got banned. It was an absurd card, and it absolutely should have got banned. So bearing in mind we don't have Puzzle of Time right now, why am I telling you that I still think we're never getting this back? The answer is somebody's going to break it. At some point, somebody is going to break this card. It is inevitable. There is no world in which somebody at some point doesn't go, I can break that. I can absolutely take that card and break it wide open. And that is why Puzzle of Time is just not coming back. And I feel very confident about this. Now, in terms of what we've got right now that can actually recover tool cards, it's not exactly like we've got anything along the lines of Puzzle of Time. I'm telling you right now, we haven't. And in fact, in the previous iteration of this video, I talked about Eco Arm, and I talked about the fact that Eco Arm is the best way to recover tools by far, and that meant we weren't getting Eco Arm back. Eco Arm and this as a combination would be a little bit dumb. But there are still ways that we can get tools back. Things like Roseanne's Backup, for instance. But also, like, you could not print any tool recovery if this was in the game right now. You couldn't do it. It would be ridiculous. It would be too broken. So I really think it's a fair point that this isn't coming back. Although, this comes with a caveat. And the caveat here is, if they reprint a massively nerfed version, and they use the text like we saw on Pokevital A, or Neutralization Zone, which is, this card can't be put into your hand or deck from the discard pile. Weirdly, they did that in Shroud and then stopped doing that, so you can recover other race specs. But I think if they specifically reprinted it with that addendum on, then yes, we absolutely could get this card back. But it wouldn't be a reprint now, would it? It would be a new, massively nerfed version. Another card which I think is never coming back here is Vileplume. And Vileplume's interesting because, of course, we had Vileplume twice. We had Vileplume in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and then we had Vileplume again in Ancient Origins, and they were basically the same card. I mean, sure, the ability was a different name, and back in Heart Gold, Soul Silver it was, of course, or Undaunted, it was technically a Pokebody, but it was the ability that said each player cannot play item cards from his or her hand. And I do need to give a big shout out here to Natural Harmonious Groupius, who suggested both this and Garbodor that we looked at in a previous video, because I agree, unlike Garbodor, this was printed twice. But the fact of the matter is, we can look at this right now, and we can say, look at the cards around. We have nothing even remotely on the same level as this right now. Like, we have item lock, but yeah, we've got things like Bayonet, which is an attack that for a single energy does 30 damage. And that doesn't mean it's not a good card. We've seen it do well in a bunch of regionals recently, but it absolutely does mean that, you know, compare these two. We've got Galvantula, that's got an attack that does 180, which is absolutely a decent amount of damage, but you have to discard all energy from this Pokemon in order to do so, and then you get to do decent damage while making sure that your opponent cannot play any item cards. And this is what Natural Harmonious Groupie has suggested, and I absolutely 100% agree with this. Even though we have item lock around at the moment, item lock is a thing that exists in the game, the item lock that we have is so wonderfully, drastically different to Vileplume, it's just not happening. Like, we actually have an item locking Vileplume in the format right now. Anyone else remember that? It's actually, I think, about the only other one, other than Venomoth, which is 30 plus Confusion plus item lock, but come on. But we actually, and Chuppet, which is doing it on a coin flip. But outside of like these 4 Pokemon that I've suggested, the only other one we've got in the format legal right now is a Vileplume. Does anybody remember this Vileplume? It's a one from Lost Origin, and it's on a coin flip. Tails, item lock. Heads, supporter lock. But the thing is here, like, some turns you want supporter lock and some turns you want item lock. So, you really kind of need to be able to pick which one. So unless you can fix your coin flips, and don't fix your coin flips, that's no fun for anyone, this is not a good attack. So we actually have, I've just shown you 5 Pokemon that can block item cards right now. But you might notice they're all attacks, they're not abilities. And they're not particularly good attacks. Like, they've all got massive downsides. And that's the point here. Vileplume just sat there blocking items and laughing in your face, whereas everything we've got nowadays, by comparison, is just decidedly meh. Never mind, eh? And I want to finish off with a card, and I said for a while I wasn't going to do banned cards in this list, and I have broken that rule once or twice, but here's the thing. I'd read the comments on all of these videos, as I tend to do, and RandyX8 commented along the lines of, please look at Lysander's trump card in the next version of this video. So even though it's on the ban list, we are going to look at this, because I think, especially for players that weren't around back then, having a quick discussion about why this card is banned, and why this card cannot come back, is absolutely relevant. So Lysander's trump card then was a supporter card that reads, each player shuffles all cards in his or her discard pile into his or her deck, except for Lysander's trump card. Okay, cool. Here's the thing though, at the time, the way, and this, I don't know if this was ever actually officially announced, But we all saw what was happening here. This came out in Phantom Forces. It was a Night March counter. This was clearly a counter for Night March. That was one of those decks whereby you do damage based on the amount of Pokemon with a certain attack, in this case Night March, in your discard pile. And I'll tell you what, when this got banned, Night March did actually, like, immediately, and for the rest of its time, become like a full-on ridiculous top-tier deck. So you can see why they printed this as a Night March counter. The problem was, it literally, and I mean this in a very literal sense of the word, broke the game. The game stopped working. I commentated in UK Nats 2015 solo for the whole of Swiss. I had some friends in Top Cup, but for the whole of Swiss, I commentated solo. And that was a tournament. Now, it got banned before US Nats, but it didn't get banned before UK Nats. And if you didn't play a Lysander's trump card deck, you couldn't win. Like, it was literally a case of, if you don't play Seismitoad with this, you can't win, don't bother. The final was obviously a Seismitoad mirror match. You could not win. And here's the thing. You shuffled all cards into your deck, other than Lysander's trump card, but we had Versus Seeker at the time. So you shuffle Versus Seeker back into your deck, and then when you draw into it, you pour a card from your discard pile into your hand. So Lysander's trump card was actually really good being in the discard pile because you could use Versus Seeker. And yes, I know you can say, well, Wassy, Versus Seeker is literally one of the cards you've previously put on this list as a card that's never been reprinted. So why is it an issue? Palpad. We got Palpad right now. Came out in Scarlet and Violet. That would allow you to recover this. And we always have some kind of supporter recovery. You see where we're going with this. Like, even if we don't have Versus Seeker, which we don't, and I don't think we will, there's still going to be a way to get this back. Also, fun fact, unless it had that text saying you couldn't, you could totally use this to recover your ace spec over and over again. But basically, the way this worked was you would use Seismitoad, which was item lock, and you only did 30 damage, oh no, but you would use Crushing Hammer. And Crushing Hammer says that you flip a coin, and if heads, you get to discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. And sure, it's on a coin flip, but you play 4 of them in your deck. You play an incredibly aggressive draw engine, and you just recover your entire deck like every 2 or 3 turns. So you can flip, a lot of turns you would literally be flipping 2 or 3 Crushing Hammer, so you would generally hit heads every turn. And then you would have Hypnotoxic Laser, another card which we featured in this series, which was poison, but on a flip, if you got heads, you would then also go and get yourself sleep. And again, you would just play multiple versions of this, multiple copies every turn until you got sleep. And then we would have Super Scoop Up, which let you pick up your Pokemon and all cards attached to it. But again, it's a bit too good, so it's on a coin flip. But again, you can play multiples of these in a turn because of Lysander's trump card. You're not actually putting 4 in your deck. You're playing like 16, maybe more, because you're recovering your deck constantly. So basically, every single turn, near enough, you would get rid of the energy your opponent just attached. You would poison and put them to sleep. And you would be able to Super Scoop Up to heal any damage your opponent did. And round and round and round we go. It was a huge issue, and it was all because of Lysander's trump card, and that's why it had to be banned. That one's definitely not coming back, but I feel pretty confident Evolve Bloom and Life Dew fit here as well. So there we go. That's what you need to know. Those are cards that aren't coming back, and now it's over to you guys. Give me your own suggestions. I might do another version of this before Christmas, because I like to pre-make a whole bunch of videos before Christmas, so I can take a few days off. So make sure you give me some suggestions in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shoutouts on the channel like the lovely Martin Cornwall, who's literally been supporting PTCG Radio since it was a podcast back in 2012, and is a thoroughly lovely person. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.